It took far too long, but a done deal is a done deal. Dallas and CeeDee Lamb agreeing to a 4-year, $136 million contract extension. That is $34 million annually. It is the second most we have ever seen for a non-quarterback or wide receiver in the history of the National Football League. Only a tick behind Justin Jefferson. Again, it took way too long, but ultimately, before the regular season starts at the Star, the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb have agreed to a new deal that should make both sides very happy. CeeDee Lamb gets his money. The Dallas Cowboys get their best offensive piece entering 2024.
Did anybody actually think that the Dallas Cowboys were headed into the 2024 season without CeeDee Lamb for like the first couple of games because they couldn't come to an agreement? This was one of those instances where outside a quarterback, you just couldn't afford to have this guy miss any time because of how integral he is to that offense. And I'm being honest, like they'll tell you on a week-to-week basis, wide receiver being out doesn't mean all that much to the point spread. But I'm here to tell you right now, let's just say CeeDee Lamb got traded for a first-round pick and a second-round pick in next year's draft, which meant, Ben, you couldn't use that money and or that player this late in the season. I don't think the Dallas Cowboys make the playoffs. Quite frankly, I'm not so sure they're even a 500 football team without CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
With CeeDee Lamb, they're a 10-win football team and a legitimate threat to win the NFC East. That's how important he was. So very few times you take a look at a wide receiver trying to get more money out of his team than he feels like the team thinks he's worth and actually winning that argument here, it was CeeDee Lamb. And Jerry Jones understood the assignment here. Yes, I can hold out and not pay him $2 million less than what he wants, but my football team will suffer the consequences, particularly early on. And if he does get signed later, we know what that means. Hey, 1-3 through 4 games. Now I get injured in game 5 because I sat out 5 months in my contract negotiations. Get him in the camp, get him acclimated, and start winning football games right off the bat, which includes the game against the Cleveland Browns. I looked at this one and said, if there was ever a holdout that needed to be signed immediately, it was always CeeDee Lamb.
Yes, it always was, and camp concludes today as teams around the NFL have to make their roster decisions by 4 p.m. Eastern time. So CeeDee Lamb virtually missing all of training camp. It should not hamper Dallas's offense. We'll talk about the next big move we expect the Cowboys to make at some point this preseason. Now the regular season is right around the corner. But let's focus on CeeDee Lamb. $34 million per year, $1 million annually behind Justin Jefferson, who is the highest paid non-quarterback wide receiver in the history of the NFL. J-Jet got $110 million out of the Vikings guaranteed. CeeDee Lamb gets $100 million guaranteed out of the Dallas Cowboys. A $38 million signing bonus, though, for CeeDee Lamb, the most at that positional slot in the history of the NFL. And CeeDee Lamb is worth every penny, as is Justin Jefferson. And I think you could probably argue the 5 wide receivers now in the $30 million club. Justin Jefferson the most, CeeDee Lamb the second. A.J. Brown in Philadelphia makes about $32 million per year. Amon-Ra St. Brown makes a little bit over $30 million. And Tyreek Hill makes $30 million with the Miami Dolphins. But when you look at CeeDee Lamb's career production, 4 years in the National Football League, a first-round pick out of Oklahoma in 2020. More than 900 yards each and every year. The last 3, more than 1,100. The last 2, more than 1,350. And last year, 1,749 receiving yards, second most in the NFL. Led the National Football League with 135 catches and had 12 receiving touchdowns. Again, I will repeat myself. It is why when Jerry Jones was posturing and trying to find leverage, it made no sense to me because CeeDee Lamb is worth every single penny. And outside of the quarterback, I believe Dallas's most important offensive player.
Absolutely. And also it reminds us of what the Dallas Cowboys were actually doing this offseason, which made no sense. If you were the all-in Jerry Jones, you signed this guy in February or March. Let's just say when the free agency opens up, and technically it wasn't even a free agent, could have got done at any time. Let's just say once the league calendar flipped over to this year and he was eligible for an extension, sign him immediately. Redo Dak's contract here, and that gives you an entire free agency with more money on the table to sign more quality players to play in 2024. So for me, CeeDee Lamb getting his money this late doesn't help the Dallas Cowboys. And even if we do get a restructured contract and an extension for Dak Prescott, defeats the whole purpose. The purpose is to get that done before free agency so you know how much money you can spend and bring in even better talent to the football team that you feel has a chance to win the division and compete in the playoffs. So it was a backward season. If you tell me, like, hey, well, offseason, all we're going to do is sign CeeDee late and also re-up Dak late in this year, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The Cowboys will be a fine team this year. They could have been an incredible team if they made these decisions much, much earlier, Ben.
Completely agree, because CeeDee Lamb was entering the final year of his rookie deal. Dak Prescott is about to enter the final year of his contract, and Mike McCarthy, the same story, and he does not seem as though he is in line for an extension as of right now. So as we look at CeeDee Lamb's receiving yards props for 2024, we have not seen Dak Prescott throughout preseason, but here are the numbers on CeeDee Lamb. He got paid. Donnie, will Dak be paid prior to the start of 2024's regular season? The Cowboys' first game on Sunday, September 8th, just about 2 weeks away.
You'd want to say yes, but what's the point of even doing it now? Like, the whole point was to restructure his contract to get under the salary cap and pay another player. So why not just ride it out? If Dak has a great season, he's going to get paid a ton of money anyway next year at this point. See what Dak Prescott has in him. If Dak's willing to play without a new contract, that's probably a much better scenario, because if he does play and play well, and let's just say the Cowboys break through the first time since 1995 and play in a Super Bowl, yeah, he's probably worth an extra $5 million on top of his $60 million that he's going to make. And if I'm Jerry Jones, I would be fine with that. It doesn't even make any sense to sign him right now.
Yeah, but you do play a dangerous game, because Dak Prescott is a free agent and can test the market and find a different destination if he so desires. And that is the standard of success at the Star. Even if the Cowboys haven't reached that level in nearly 3 decades, it is win a conference championship and play for a Lombardi trophy. An 8-1 price on the Cowboys to win the NFC championship. It's tied for the 4th best number around the NFC, 18-1 to win a Super Bowl. Of course, since their last Super Bowl championship in 1995, the Cowboys have failed to even reach the NFC Championship game. More around the National Football League that comes your way next. You're on the early line. It is a very natural cause in the National Football League to look at a contract extension in one place for one individual and forecast what it might mean elsewhere around the National Football League. That's, of course, what we did yesterday. CeeDee Lamb signing a 4-year, $136 million extension with the Dallas Cowboys. $34 million per year, the second highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. And as Donnie Rightside often does, his first thought when wideout X gets paid, what about wideout Y? That's Jamar Chase in Cincinnati. The difference, however, though, is Chase is entering year number 4. 2 more years left on his rookie deal. CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson were entering the final year of their contract in 2024. But whether it's Jamar Chase, DRS, or maybe Brandon Aiyuk in San Francisco, who is also entering the 5th and final year of his rookie deal, what do you think Lamb's deal means for those 2 wide receivers?
It should mean more money. Now, let's just focus on Cincinnati. And again, I think Brandon Aiyuk's deal is going to get done here. It's interesting that he never got traded, even though the deals were in place, so you knew he wanted to stay a 49er. Let's set him aside for just a moment. CeeDee Lamb got paid yesterday. Look at the rest of the wide receivers who wanted to get paid this year. They all got paid. So if you are the Philadelphia Eagles or the Miami Dolphins or the Minnesota Vikings, you said to yourself, you players, talking about the wide receivers, we love you. You're integral parts of our offense right now and into the future. We want to pay you accordingly, so you're happy, so you know you're worth it, and you're going to perform at the highest level with nothing in the back of your mind that goes, oh my goodness, I just had a game that had 4 catches for 42 yards. That's going to impact me in free agency. Go out there and play as hard as you can and give it your best effort. The reason I bring that up is the Cincinnati Bengals told their 2 young wide receivers in their prime right now, they told T. Higgins, you're not part of our plans. We are not securing a long-term deal. I'll pay you this year. You'll get decent money. But next year, we're just going to cut you loose because you're not in our plans. How does that make T. Higgins feel at this point? And then if you're Jamar Chase going, the organization telling you right now, hey, we really like you here. We're just not going to pay you. Which, hear me out on this once again, Cincinnati. You wait on Jamar Chase, the price of the brick goes higher, higher, and higher. Every week, every month, every year, and all you do is piss off your high-end talent. What are we doing here? If Cincinnati, for me, Ben, settled T. Higgins on a long-term contract, settled Jamar Chase on a long-term contract, they signed Joe Burrow to a long-term deal. That's 3 players that every time you take the field, you have a legitimate chance to win now and in the future. It's a clown organization doing things backwards, and that's why I'm down on the Cincinnati Bengals in 2024. Any company you work for, take care of your assets. You will get better performance on the field, and also they can tell their friends, you want to come to Cincinnati. My owner is awesome. He takes care of you. What's the next free agent going to look like, or guy that gets drafted in the top 10? The Bengals go, man, hopefully in 5 years I get out of here and I can get paid by somebody else.
DRS, it's a very fair assessment in my estimation as well. It might seem like, okay, the guy's still making a lot of money. He still has 2 years left on his deal. It's not really going to impact the overall outcome and production on the actual football field in NFL regular season games. But doesn't it? For Jamar Chase to feel valued as one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League, Cincinnati could have had the foresight to pay him early, like Miami did earlier this offseason with Jalen Waddle. And Jalen Waddle is not Jamar Chase. But the reason you pay a guy early is not only to get in front of the market, so the market is not dictating what you do, but you are helping influence what the market does after the contract extension that you put out there, but also because you can average out what is going to be one of the most lucrative deals we have ever seen for a wide receiver in NFL history over the final 2 years of his rookie deal, so it's more franchise-friendly for Mike Brown and the Bengals. But that, of course, did not happen. Donnie, we have speculated on if Brandon Aiyuk is going to play in San Francisco this season. Preseason is done. Camp is virtually done. Is Aiyuk playing for the 49ers this year?
1,000%. It's too late to make that move, to learn a new playbook, to change organizations, to get paid. They're probably just fighting over like $1 million difference right now that will come to a head probably this week, same way that CeeDee Lamb got done. You don't want this to linger into game week. I believe this deal does get done, and the 49ers will be better because of it, excuse me.
And there are fines that are handed out for missing training camp practices and such, but it pales in comparison to the money from a game check. Now, when you look at names like Trent Williams in San Fran, Hassan Reddick, much maligned with the New York Jets, this is where it gets a little bit dicey and precarious. How long do you want to play hardball and miss out on millions of dollars as we approach the regular season? It is cut day for Enterprise's Super Bowl around the NFL next. Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid on this Tuesday around the National Football League. Sorry, I chuckled to myself. It's cut day around the NFL. And it's not really a laughing matter. Many lives and livelihoods are changed on this day. All 32 NFL clubs need to cut down their roster to 53 active players, guys that have grinded it out around the National Football League in training camp, busting their tails, trying to earn a roster spot in an organization during preseason games, might not have that opportunity by day's end, 4 p.m. Eastern time. But why I chuckle is because of how Donnie Rightside brands cut day around the NFL, Enterprise's Super Bowl. I had never heard that before, so that really got me going.
Yeah, a lot of new podcasts probably going to pop up within the next 24 hours as well. People got to survive out here and eat, man. Just because you can't live out your childhood dream, you got to go to work the very next day to pay those bills. So congratulations to those guys who are letting go, starting their new careers here, and away we go.
Listen, there are, what do they say, grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Most of those NFL players that try to make a training camp roster or an active roster go pro in something other than sports. That's what we might have around the NFL today. But 4 p.m. Eastern time, it is cut day in the National Football League, which is an important date in the NFL calendar, as now teams are done with training camp. Training camp is virtually concluded at this point. Preseason in the books. All sights on week number 1. Within the next 2 weeks, it's game preparation with a couple of extra days to get ready for your week 1 opponent. We are 9 days out from the NFL season opener and that debut for 2024 inside Arrowhead Stadium between the Chiefs and the Ravens. So some maneuvers happening that could bolster your roster, even with guys that weren't there during camp. That is the case in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Packers yesterday trading a 7th-round draft pick in 2025 to Tennessee. In return, the Titans send third-year quarterback Malik Willis to Green Bay. He is slotted in to be the backup QB behind Jordan Love. Willis had a lot of hype entering the 2022 NFL Draft out of Liberty. For a little bit of time in that draft cycle, DRS, he was the favorite to go first overall. He was the favorite to be the first quarterback taken in 2022. He slides, probably correctly so, to the 3rd round of that draft, selected by the Titans. Did not pan out in Nashville. Now he earns a reserve role behind Jordan Love with the Pack.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong on this one. It was an interesting circumstance. I believe Malik Willis was on the Titans, and he was in line for his start, and they just didn't think he was ready for it, even though he's on the roster. And I think it was Josh Dobbs that came in off of like 5 or 6 days, and they started at quarterback for the Titans. I believe that was the correct story. So what we're getting out of Malik Willis at this point is just not ready for prime time, but we do believe he does have a lot of physical tools that down the line could amount to something. And if you are the Packers, you didn't lose anything on this, by the way. There's a 7th-round draft pick that you flip over for a backup quarterback that you feel maybe can fill in spots. And also, it's a great landing spot. There's no pressure on Malik Willis, and he's in an offense under LaFleur that's very good, and you can just sit there and learn and not have the ability to say to myself, boy, I better be prepared in 2 to 3 weeks. I'm going to start for a bad football team for 5 or 6 games, and I'm going to have to step up my game. That's not the case. If you do go down, if it's Jordan Love, that is a great spot to be in as a backup quarterback as long as you're coached up appropriately, and I believe Matt LaFleur is going to be able to do that. I think it's a win-win for both franchises. You get at least some sort of compensation back for the Titans, but also from Malik Willis, this is the perfect landing spot to learn for a couple years to feel like you might be a starting quarterback in this league and in a great organization to do so.
Yeah, absolutely so. And it's a really good point, DRS. When you look at the career stats for Malik Willis, again, it has not been the greatest start to his National Football League career in Tennessee. There you see it. 0 touchdowns thrown, 3 interceptions. Did make a few starts at the end of 2022. Had a couple of appearances last year in 2023. Is he a National Football League starter at the QB spot? Probably not. Can he grow under Matt LaFleur behind Jordan Love and provide some upside from that reserve quarterback spot? Maybe so. It was pretty clear as well throughout Packers training camp and in preseason that LaFleur and the coaching staff not in love with the 2 options in-house. Sean Clifford, the second-year guy out of Penn State, or the rookie Michael Pratt, who was taken day number 3. So the Packers go elsewhere to get their backup in Malik Willis. Other notable news from Monday as we enter Cut Day Tuesday around the National Football League. 4-time Pro Bowler Dalvin Cook, after an unsuccessful season with the New York Jets, is slated to work out for the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, it's a very new running back room at the Star. Ezekiel Elliott is back, but Tony Pollard is now in Nashville. Tim Patrick, much maligned with injuries the last few years, is set to part ways with the Broncos. He will be released today if the Broncos cannot make a deal with another team around the NFL. And a Seahawks pass rusher, Uchenna Nwosu, has a sprained MCL. Not great for Mike McDonald's defense entering year number 1.
No, not right out of the gate. You're trying to win that game against the Denver Broncos, but the other 2 are interesting. Like Patrick, you take a look at the Denver Broncos over the past couple of years. The one thing it looked like they had set up for the future was a young, talented wide receiving core that they paid, settled in, and said, we're going to grow with this. And it just went to hell in high water quickly at that point. And now you're looking at just cutting this guy loose. But also, from a Dallas Cowboys, is this what we thought when it was all in? We're going to get Ezekiel Elliott back and Dalvin Cook, 2 Social Security running backs here trying to fight for playing time. You want to talk about Dalvin Cook, which was interesting last year. Do you remember when, like, the free agency, going to be a Miami Dolphin, I'm not going to be on the Jets, and the Jets paid him good money, and he just looked like a shell of his former self. And when I say that, it was unbelievable. Dalvin Cook, one of the more exciting running backs, and me being a Miami Hurricanes fan, like, you just handed him the football at Florida State, and he won you football games. And he did the same thing for most of his career in Minnesota. But when that running backs hit that wall, they just can't recover from it. And he's one of those guys where Dalvin Cook on a screen pass or a run, he was so fun to bet on. Anytime touchdown market, receiving props, he was everything in Minnesota, and that's just an absolute shell of his former self.
Yeah, it's disappointing, right? Because when he went to New York, he signed with the Jets during training camp. It wasn't the splashiest hire, but there was still a thought that with Dalvin Cook in that running back room, as Breece Hall was coming back healthy, as the Jets had some young and talented running backs, that Dalvin Cook could provide a little bit of a spark, not having to be the guy, not having to run the football 20 to 25 times per game. Just didn't work out. 15 games last year in New York, only one start, 67 carries for 214 yards, just 3.2 yards per pop. And he left Minnesota after 4 consecutive years as a Pro Bowler with more than 1,100 yards, playing at least 13 games in all 4 of those seasons. Maybe he provides a little bit of depth to Dallas this year, but now he is 29 years old. It is part of the disappointing timeline and lifespan, sadly, of a running back in the National Football League.
It's just the way it is, man. Time moves on a lot quicker for running backs than a lot of positions in the NFL. Make your money while you can, or else you're going to be spending it with a couple different franchises in a backup role, which is, looks, if Dalvin Cook even gets to the Dallas Cowboys, that's what's going to take place.
DRS, do we have confirmation out of Dallas if Rico Dowdle is going to be the lead back for the Cowboys this year and Zeke is kind of that reserve? Is that what the plan is?
They're probably keeping it quiet because it's embarrassing to think that Rico Dowdle is going to be your starting tailback here to start the season for the Dallas Cowboys. So probably keeping that under wraps is best.
Which made it so important then for Dallas to sign CeeDee Lamb because he is that guy offensively. Dak Prescott still unsigned, at least as of this moment. Unsigned, not the correct word. He's under contract, but does not have that extension beyond this year in 2024. Could it be his final at the Star? That remains to be seen. It is Win Total Tuesday. Once again on the early line as well. We'll go all around the NFC South a little bit later on. DRS, here's a little sneak peek for you. The last time the NFC South had 3 of the 4 teams post a winning record throughout the regular season, 2017. You don't have to do a lot to win games in this division and maybe find your way to a divisional crown, at least as of late. We'll talk Win Total Tuesday a little bit later on. Our 8th and final Win Total Tuesday in a row, live right here on the early line. Why is it our 8th and final? Well, that's all the divisions in the National Football League, which has been our focus week to week around the National Football League. And next week, so what about the futures and the win totals? We'll talk actual game lines entering week number 1. It is game week around the NFL starting next week. It is cut day today, and it's the final Win Total Tuesday live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. Maybe we save the best for last. Maybe that's the thought as we look around the NFC South on this Tuesday. Regarded by most, the RS, I would say, is the worst division in the National Football League, but number 1 perhaps in our hearts, despite being the 8th and final on Win Total Tuesday. But there's a newcomer in the NFC South that is expected to do big things right away in 2024. His name, Kirk Cousins, his team, the Atlanta Falcons. They are an odds-on favorite at minus 145 to win the divisional title this year in the NFC South. The Buccaneers have won the division the last 3 years, the first 2 with Tom Brady, albeit with a losing record in 2022, last year with Baker Mayfield. The preseason favorites a season ago, the New Orleans Saints, came up just shy last year of the Buccaneers, but did finish with a winning record. And the Carolina Panthers have the longest price in this division at 11-1. The Panthers had the worst record in the National Football League a season ago at just 2-15. NFC South, the overview. From the mind of Donnie Rightside, what's your first thought?
I think they're priced appropriately here, and Atlanta by far and away is the best team in this division. I think they have the best quarterback in this division, and the defense got a little bit better here, adding on Simmons as a safety, which going along with Jesse Bates III, a formidable concept here. And also, you're taking a look at the wide receiver position. Drake London, I think, is really going to take that next step this year. Now, we're going to say, hey, same thing as Justin Jefferson. We're not buying into that type of hype, but now you have a quarterback that's going to be able to deliver the football when he's open. That's a big deal. And you say, well, how big a deal could it be? What, did you see Desmond Ridder throwing the football out there last year? Did you see Taylor Heineke? No longer. You have an actual Pro Bowl quarterback that's ready to let loose in a division that plays, you should say your home games in a dome, and also you get that dome appearance there down in New Orleans. I like everything about this offseason outside of, I guess, the new head coaching hire for the Falcons, but to me, I never bought into the Buccaneers. We'll see what we're going to get out of the New Orleans Saints, who I thought were the best team in the division last year and came up lame. We'll see if we get that young quarterback in Bryce Young to perform this year in Carolina. But for me, on day number one, player for player, team by team, it's the Atlanta Falcons that are the best team in this division.
So, DRS, I said it in our opening hour as we were already excited for our final win total Tuesday around the National Football League. 2017 was the last time within this division, within the NFC South, that three of the four teams, more than half, three of the four teams all had a winning record. Tampa Bay won this division with Tom Brady back in 2021 with a 13-4 record. It was the last time, now 3 years ago, a divisional champ in the NFC South got to double-digit wins. The Buccaneers won the division for a second consecutive year. In 2022, they had a losing record. Last season, two teams finished with a winning record at 9-8, but the Buccaneers had the tiebreaker advantage over the New Orleans Saints. So then you look at the divisional odds, which we showed you, which features the Falcons as nearly $1.50 favorite, and tie it into the win totals. 9.5 the number for the Falcons. The over has the juice, expected to be a double-digit win team. If Atlanta does that, the first double-digit win NFC South divisional champ since 2021. The Bucs and the Saints both at 7.5. And to say something nice about both Tampa and New Orleans, the juice is on the over, expected to contend for 8, potentially 9 wins. The Panthers have juice on the over as well at 5.5 for a team that won only 2 games last year.
Yeah, they're low numbers, but they're there for a reason. I do think the Panthers will be much better this year than they were last year. Canales should be able to say, you know what? I resurrected Baker Mayfield's career. I can do the same thing with Bryce Young. Because remember, it wasn't a 6th-round draft pick in Bryce Young that you're trying to fold into an NFL spot. This is one of the best players in college football that woefully underperformed because he didn't have a lot of talent around him. Got him a wide receiver this year. But if we are focused once again on those two teams in the middle, the New Orleans Saints, so disappointing last year. They still have a lot of talent on that football team. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just not buying in, but they brought the band back together that won the division last year. So they will be competitive. But for me, once again, Atlanta, for me, the best team in the NFC South end.
And we'll start with the best team and the odds-on favorite. Up next, Falcons win total here on the early line. The Atlanta Falcons and Kirk Cousins now expected to run away with the NFC South in the 2024 NFL season. 9.5 is the win total for the Dirty Birds. They're a minus 145 favorite to win the NFC South title this season. 3 years under Arthur Smith, the exact same record in all 3 of the past NFL campaigns, 7-10. But now in year number 1 under Raheem Morris, back in the ATL, with a shiny new quarterback in Kirk Cousins, who signed a 4-year, $180 million deal, and an offense expected to put up a ton of numbers. The Falcons are that divisional odds-on favorite, looking to become the first double-digit win divisional champ in the NFC South since the Buccaneers back in 2021. That is the expectation, Donnie, in the ATL this season. Will the Falcons match it?
I think they will, because I think they're the most complete team in that division. If you're taking a look at what works in the NFL, give me a really good offensive line. The Atlanta Falcons have that. Give me an athletic tight end that can get open downfield and bust coverages. Pitts can do that for you. Give me a young, talented wide receiver that hasn't met his ceiling yet because of the quarterback play. Now as a quarterback, and he can meet that ceiling in Drake London. And also an unbelievable, explosive running back in Bijan Robinson that we're waiting to unleash this year. And then, of course, Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Now, flip it over to the defensive side. Give me a good defensive line with a solid pass rush. You add Matthew Judon. That does the trick here. Give me a cornerback that can be a lockdown corner. A.J. Terrell. Remind you, Ben, that he is the highest paid cornerback in football now. Give me a safety tandem that can erase bad plays out of the quarterback position if there are them. That's Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons on the back end. There's no weak links on this football team, and that's what you look for. So when we compare it to the other 3 teams in the division, going grouping by grouping, this is the best team out there. We'll see what Raheem Morris has, because one thing we do know about Raheem Morris is, forget about him as a head coach. He's a really good defensive coordinator. So if that defensive game plan is set week to week by him, and you're getting solid quarterback play to Kirk Cousins, why are we not winning 9 to 10 football games and taking down this division? If they don't win 9 or more games, that's an upset for the Atlanta Falcons, and I don't know where they go from here. But barring disastrous injury, which we always have to say, the Atlanta Falcons are the best team in the NFC South, Ben.
Yeah, no doubt about it, DRS. And when you look at the strength of schedule, it is ripe for Atlanta to take advantage of this year. According to Sharp Analytics and our guy, perhaps Warren Sharp, entering 2024, the Falcons have the easiest strength of schedule in the National Football League. And I love what Sharp and his team do, because it's based on how we set the odds week by week in the National Football League. It's not combined record from 2023 of their opponents. It's the projected win totals of the team on Atlanta's schedule this year. And it takes into account things like rest advantage and disadvantage, travel, and all of that goes into shaping these lines week to week. Who is favored, who is expected to win, and then how many games can you win in a single season. The Falcons have the easiest schedule in the National Football League. Frankly, if they're not a double-digit win team, if they do not win the NFC South, then you're going to have a lot of questions to answer in the first year under Kirk Cousins and under Raheem Morris. The only thing, Donnie, that I have been skeptical of for the Dirty Birds this offseason, after they signed Kirk Cousins and placing them as the divisional odds-on favorite, was what the heck Terry Fontenot, the general manager for the Atlanta Falcons, was doing in the NFL draft, selecting Michael Penix Jr. 8th overall. Outside of that, I have full belief the Falcons on the actual football field under Raheem Morris are going to be a darn good team this year. And again, anything less than double-digit wins and a divisional title is a disappointing season in my estimation.
No, you're right about it. And they did make the Cardinals sin in the NFL. The good thing about there is it's never really, or should be in the NFL, a really long rebuild. You stink one season, you get high draft picks, you probably have a lot of capital here that you can spend. And by year number 3 of a regime, you should be upright on your feet and expecting to win divisions. Outside of, let's just say, playing against Patrick Mahomes for 10 straight years, you're never going to be on the upswing here if you're a team that's trying to get its footing. The reason I bring that up is you really miss the point here. I understand the philosophy in theory, Ben, where they're saying, we're probably not going to be drafting this high again. Eventually, we'll need another quarterback. You can't do that in the NFL, because now you're saying to yourselves, and Kirk Cousins brought you in, Kirk, I think you got 4 solid years left in you. Well, you know what would have been great here? To have Drake London on one side and let's just say Roma Dunze on the other, to grow together with Kirk Cousins here, as opposed to Michael Penix, who's never going to see the field. You'd be an even better football team over the next 2 to 3 years than you would even if Michael Penix turns out to be a serviceable quarterback 4 years down the road or 3 years down the road. So that is an issue here, where they could have been a stronger football team in 2024 if they made the appropriate picks in the draft, which I don't believe they did. But we can only look at what they have on the field this year up against the rest of the talent in that division, and it still holds up for the Atlanta Falcons. As I said, the most important part here is I do expect very good quarterback play out of Kirk Cousins. And again, there are no weak links on this football team, where the other teams we're going to talk about, there's a lot of weak links, quite frankly.
And Donnie, you expect this Atlanta team to put up numbers offensively.
Yeah.
They will be a team that I monitor throughout the season in terms of their weekly totals. What is the over-under listed as, and can we lean over for the Falcons? Kirk Cousins has Drake London. Hopefully Kyle Pitts emerges as well. You brought in guys like Darnell Mooney on this Atlanta staff, and then Bijan Robinson, who might be one of the best do-it-all players in the National Football League, much in the mold of Christian McCaffrey. It's why you draft a running back 8th overall 2 years ago. That is the expectation for the Falcons. But it's not just win games 35-31. The defense under Raheem Morris should be good, and as you alluded to, DRS, they weren't bad last year and have the building blocks in place. 11th best total defense in the National Football League a season ago. Top 10 in terms of defending the pass. Did give up some points, nearly 22 per game. That was bottom half of the National Football League. but still a pretty solid defense that you would expect to improve under the defensive-minded head coach in Raheem Morris. So let's take it a step further. Minus 145 for the Falcons, expected to be a double-digit win divisional champ, which would mean they are hosting a playoff game at bare minimum in the National Football League postseason. Is this Atlanta Falcons squad able to contend right away for a conference crown in the NFC?
Well, theoretically, you would have to say yes, even though I don't think they're going to win the NFC. The reason being is if I think they're the best team in the NFC South and they win the NFC South, that means what, Ben? Automatically, you're going to get one home game in your own building, which then puts you into the next round. Let's just say if that was the opening the divisional round and then the championship round, if you win one more football game. And if you are playing that good football and you do win round number one in the playoffs at home, why can't you actually contend for an NFC championship? Because you're right there with the final four teams in that conference as is. So I'll give them a leg up in that situation. Do I think that they could be a representative here in the Super Bowl out of the NFC? No, I don't. But if you're going to make the playoffs and get a playoff home game, yes, you should actually be a contender in the NFC.
No doubt. So when you look around the NFC right now, is it a conference that is fully up in the air? That remains to be seen. The AFC considered a gauntlet, the harder of the two. Could Atlanta then, at an 11-1 price, position itself to make a run deep into playoff contention? Let's just call it what it is. Atlanta has the easiest schedule in the National Football League. Part of that is because they are the best team considered in the NFC South. They will play teams that have a win total entering this year of 7.5, 7.5, and 5 in a hook in 2024. 10 wins might be the floor. Could this be an 11 or 12-win football team? Could they be contending for that number one seed in the NFC? Could they have home field advantage not just in Super Wild Card weekend, but potentially in the divisional round? All of that seems in store this year for the Falcons. Now it's about matching that expectation. And let's not forget, Kirk Cousins is a veteran quarterback who is coming off a torn Achilles. He should be ready to go week number one. And to put it in perspective, the Falcons will host the Steelers on that first full Sunday of the season, Sunday, September 8th, as a field goal favorite in the ATL against Pittsburgh. Arthur Smith, the former head coach, now the OC in the Steel City, makes his return from the very start to Atlanta. Elsewhere around the NFC South next. So we started off Win Total Tuesday, breaking down the divisional favorites in the NFC South in an odds-on manner. The Atlanta Falcons, they have the highest win total, 9.5. The over has the juice. The Dirty Birds expected to be a double-digit win football team in 2024. Atlanta has by far the shortest price of any teams out of this division to contend for a conference crown in the NFC. 11-1 before we get a steep drop-off to the Bucs at 35-1, the Saints at 40-1, and the Panthers have the longest price around the NFC at 100-1. Our focus now on the meat and potatoes of this division, the middle two teams, the Buccaneers and the Saints, both clubs with a win total of 7.5. Both have slight juice on the over. And it almost is surprising, DRS, we did not start our conversation with the Buccaneers, a team that has won this division 3 consecutive years, first 2 with Tom Brady, but last year followed suit for a third year in a row under Baker Mayfield. Re-signed this offseason. They extend Mike Evans. They give the bag to Antoine Winfield Jr. and Tristan Wirfs. We should be optimistic about this Bucs team, no? But the win total is just 7.5. How come?
Because I just don't think we're buying into this Buccaneers team. You say, hey, they won last year. Did you see that? They won the division. They won a playoff game. Well, the playoff game was against a banged-up Eagles team that was already off the rails at that point here, and they won a bad division overall. The one thing I do like, though, is I think Baker Mayfield and that offense, Ben, is going to be able to score some points this year. Evans, Godwin, you draft McMillan. That's going to be fun, which means he might have a higher strike zone of touchdown passes, but also more interceptions, which could lead to more points for the opposing teams. Also, keep in mind, we loved what we saw at Baker Mayfield. Unceremoniously, basically chucked out of Cleveland, winds up in Carolina, finds his way down to Tampa, eventually is a starting quarterback. But the architect of that offense was Dave Canales. And you're saying, okay, you know what? Let's see what we can do in the year two. Well, he's no longer there at that point. Same thing when I take a look at a guy like a Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, who had Shane Steichen, who was phenomenal as his offensive coordinator with a great offense on the way to the Super Bowl. Didn't look all that great last year. Then you might say banged up, shoulder, banged up leg, couldn't run as well. The Eagles were just kind of a mess throughout the entire season. Should I say late in the season? But that still means he lost his offense coordinator, didn't perform. Are we expecting that out of Baker Mayfield? Not necessarily, but all of those good vibes. Because, we talk about it, Ben, if you equate the situation to Tampa, why are we so high on Detroit? Ben Johnson's still going to be their offensive coordinator. The same thing as we take a look at the Texans here. Why do we love them so much? Because the offense looked great last year, and Bobby Slowick is back again. Maybe you would have a different outlook, or should I say I would have a different outlook on Tampa Bay's offense if Canales had stayed in Tampa Bay, but he's not. I still think that offense is going to be able to move. I still don't think they'll be able to run the football all that effectively, which should lead to a lot more touchdown passes and interceptions, as I stated here. They're a decent football team. I just don't think they're as good as the Atlanta Falcons, who last year were basically just missing a quarterback. Now they got their quarterback and they added weapons. They're better than Tampa is, but I still expect Tampa to be serviceable around that 8 to 9 win mark, but I don't think they have enough gas in the tank to win the division this year, Ben.
It sounds kind of crazy. Baker Mayfield has been in the National Football League for only 6 years because he has been thrust into the conversation for such a long time. The former number 1 overall pick, the Heisman Trophy winner out of Oklahoma back in 2018 to the Browns, had his best season of his National Football League career last year with the Buccaneers. The only year he threw for more than 4,044, ninth most of any starting quarterback around the NFL a season ago. The most touchdowns in his career, 28, the least amount of interceptions in a full starting season as a quarterback. The new offensive coordinator in Tampa, Liam Cohen, who was great at Kentucky as the OC, worked under Sean McVay in Los Angeles for the Rams recently as well, has familiarity with Baker Mayfield from his time in L.A. back in 2022. I'm optimistic about this Bucs team. I would take over the win total. I do think Tampa can contend and put some pressure on Atlanta for that top spot in the NFC South. Am I going to say the Buccaneers are more than a 9-win football team? Not necessarily, but a really good defense under Todd Bowles, as you would expect there in Tampa as well. The pieces are in place, though, for the Bucs not to go quietly and be a 7-10 football team that the Falcons trample over to get back atop the division. 7.5 is the win total as well in New Orleans. Donnie, a team that you and I were both optimistic about entering 2023 was the Saints. Derek Carr was the new quarterback in the Big Easy. Defense was really good under Dennis Allen. Some offensive pieces in place for Derek Carr to utilize at his disposal. It was a winning season for New Orleans, but it wasn't necessarily what we expected, and ended unceremoniously with Jameis Winston defying his head coach, not taking a knee and scoring a touchdown. Jameis now, of course, in Cleveland. But it did lead to many questioning if Dennis Allen was the right guy to lead this New Orleans team moving forward. He's back as the leader of the Saints.
Yeah, they got some capable pieces on defense. They'll be a solid defense overall, defensive-minded head coach. We understand that. But if we're looking at the offense, I'm just not in love with that offensive line. Question marks at the tackle position. Question marks at the guard position. They do have a decent center. Alvin Kamara, another year. Do we still expect him to be explosive if he's healthy? Yes. Olave, love him as a wide receiver. But also, what are we getting out of Derek Carr, the quarterback, at this point here? I was high on them last year because you thought the stars were going to collide. New quarterback in town, easy, quote-unquote, as we said, not easy schedule, which is what we thought. I actually thought the Saints were going to be a double-digit win team last year and win that division going away, and they weren't able to do it. So maybe it's one of those seasons where I'm not expecting all that much out of the Saints, and they do have some pieces to the puzzle. But again, I just don't think they're as good as the Atlanta Falcons. I think they're more on the level of the Buccaneers, like split with them, challenge them, 8 to 9 wins possibility on the season here. But I'm not expecting big things out of the Saints. Last year for me was such a big letdown. I'm going to need to see more. In the same way that I take a look at the Atlanta Falcons, Ben, and say, boy, that offensive line should be able to move some people around. I don't know if you're going to get that out of New Orleans. And if you can't win the offensive line, you can't win a ton of football games for me.
Yeah, the Bucs had the 8th best scoring defense in the NFL last year. The Saints 9th best scoring defense, both allowing just a little bit over 19 points per game. I do want to discuss the Saints on the other side, and then we'll get to the Carolina Panthers as well. The team bringing up the rear in this division after a 2-win season in Bryce Young's rookie year. What is he going to do in his sophomore campaign with a new head coach in Dave Canales? Find out next. The New Orleans Saints win total entering 2023 was 9.5, expected with a new quarterback to win double-digit games and the NFC South. It did not happen despite a 9-win season. Similar expectations for the Falcons this year as the Saints had a season ago. New Orleans great defensively, not so great on the offensive side of the football, although the numbers weren't terrible by any means. The Saints did go under, though, in 11 of 17 games in 2023. I expect defense to lead the way. And much like you, DRS, I might bet the Saints to go over 7.5. Is it much more than 8? Perhaps maybe even not getting to 9, which is a small margin. That's probably where I land on New Orleans. I do think the Saints will be a good team, but just not necessarily a double-digit win team that is right there step for step with the Falcons and maybe even the Bucs for the top spot in the NFC South. Again, a division that has failed to have 3 of the 4 teams even post a winning record altogether in the same year since 2017. I think that trend could continue this season. And my final point on this division before we get to the Carolina Panthers, who have the lowest win total in this division and the second lowest around the National Football League, is that because it's the NFC South, and there's not even a team with a double-digit win total, although the Falcons at 9.5 do have the over on the juice. All 4 of these teams have 4 of the 11 easiest schedules in the NFL. The Falcons have the easiest, the Saints the 5th easiest, the Panthers the 10th easiest, and the Buccaneers check in at number 11 in terms of the ease of difficulty. When you play in a perceived poor division, there are the opportunities to bolster your win-loss record because your competition is not so great.
Yeah, and exactly. If you take a look at a Saints position, they'll be one of those football teams that surprises and wins maybe a game or two they're not supposed to win or that you thought they could win. And then they're also going to drop 1 to 2 games in the season. Like, how did they blow that game? My goodness, car imploded late in that football game. We're going to see that quite a bit here, but that's why we look at the NFC South, and it is so intriguing because, yes, these teams should have easy schedules, as you said, because they're playing each other, which are going to equate to wins and losses within that division. And I do think it's going to be close. And granted, when you have teams that you don't think are going to run away with the division, it's always going to be close. Hey, team with 9 wins, 2 teams with 7 wins, a team with 5 wins. Even though the team only has 5 wins, still in that month of December, they probably still think they're in contention to win that actual division as long as they're playing a team in their division on a week-to-week process throughout the rest of December. It's a division that we're not in love with, but for me, it's still the Atlanta Falcons up top. But I get where you're coming from here, talking about the scheduling.
So the Panthers bring up the rear in this division, the 4th and longest price to win the NFC South, the lowest win total at 5.5. Carolina actually still has the longest price to win the NFC at 100-1. And despite the Patriots having a lesser win total of only 4.5, the Panthers have a longer price to win the Super Bowl. I wonder if the odds makers are like, whatever. If you bet the Patriots or Carolina, good luck to you. The Panthers have the second shortest number to have the worst regular season record for a second consecutive year after a 2-15 season. Now, I don't know if Carolina goes over 5.5. I don't even think that's truly important. You need to see Bryce Young look good in year number 2, but his first with new head coach Dave Canales in Charlotte. A rookie campaign in which Young started 16 games and threw for more than 250 yards only once. Will Bryce Young have a much better sophomore season, year number 2 in his National Football League career, than his rookie campaign?
I absolutely believe that because sometimes you can say to yourself, like, how do you turn out to be a bust in the NFL, which we've seen a lot of quarterbacks do that. Ryan Leaf comes to mind, Jamarcus Russell comes to mind, but Bryce Young doesn't seem like he has that bloodline where it's like, okay, I don't think I'm going to be very good here. Boy, I got real lucky in college. The competition wasn't great. This was an SEC quarterback that on a week-to-week basis was absolutely flat-out dominant. So why didn't we see that in year number one? There's a multitude of things. Maybe the talent surrounding him wasn't as good. You go out and get a Deontay Johnson to bolster the wide receiving core. You still have Adam Thielen, who we built a nice rapport with last year. Mingo and also Xavier Leggett, who should be able to add in those 4 wide receiver sets. Chuba Hubbard was actually a quality running back last year, and that offensive line isn't bad. And you get Dave Canales, who just reshaped the career of Baker Mayfield, coming in, probably filling into that room, going, you know what, kid? I was brought in here to resurrect your career. Watch what I can do for you. So the confidence level for Bryce Young in the locker room is probably at an all-time high right now. Are they going to win the division? No, they're not. But as Ben pointed out, and the same thing we'll tell you time and time again, this season is all about if Bryce Young is your franchise guy. If he is and you win 5 games, who cares? Move forward.